Good afternoon and welcome to the second concurrent session of the day, Bridging the Gap, Co-requisite Mathematics at Navarro College. Our presenters today are Amy Young and Brandon Ford from Navarro College. Amy Young has taught developmental mathematics at Navarro College for over 15 years. During this time, she has been working on her PhD in education. At Navarro College, Amy has taught both credit level math and psychology classes. She has also assisted in creating a handbook for the adjunct faculty and has been instrumental in developing and organizing a conference for the adjunct instructors teaching developmental math, reading, and writing. Brandon Ford has taught developmental mathematics with the Hawks Learning courseware since 2007. He is a full-time professor and a department chair of developmental studies at Navarro College in Corsicana, Texas. If you have any questions for the presenter during the session, please feel free to enter those into the Q&A section at the bottom of the Zoom room screen, and we will address them at the end of the talk. On that note, I will hand it over to our presenters.
You can talk.
Hi, how is everybody? Glad to be here again to present for Hawks. Hope everybody finds this presentation useful. We have worked at Navarro College, particularly since the pandemic began, on trying to open up and engage students in a way that that keeps them working through the courses, particularly when they're home. And we know that there are a lot of different things that fight for our students' time and energy, particularly during the pandemic. These are a few of the things that we have done to really try to boost engagement with our students, both in a face-to-face and a virtual platform. So the way we have our courses at Navarro College set up, just a little bit of history from our perspective, is we do a three-hour setup for just about all of the courses. We teach college algebra, statistics, business math, and contemporary mathematics in a co-requisite platform. We use Hawks for all of the credit and the developmental setups. We use the IR, Integrated Review, for math 0314, 0332, and 0342 for Navarro College. The 0324, which is our business math, we actually use the developmental mathematics software as a connector.
Intermediate algebra.
Intermediate algebra for the developmental connector piece for the developmental instructor. There was a time that we did not use the same softwares. We would use Hawks for the developmental sequence, and we'd use whatever the credit level sequence was using for their textbook. But we found just last year that we were able to have a more uniform classroom connection if we used Hawks for both. And our credit level departments have actually adopted the Hawk software for all of the entry-level courses at Navarro. We have considered some alternate setups, which is some lab support for 0332 for more of our bubble students that test a little bit higher on their placement. We have considered doing actually a lab-based to where they will continue to go to their credit-bearing course, but then as opposed to getting a full 3-hour developmental course, because guys, 6 hours is a lot of time for some of these students to be in a math class, to where they would go to a lab-based scenario and they would just receive a little bit of extra time, whether that's a 1-hour lab for your upper level bubble students, or 2 hours for kind of your mid-level bubble student, in which they just kind of receive just in time support on homework. We do a commingled structure at Navarro College, which basically means that we have 20 developmental students in a classroom and we have 10 credit level students in a classroom. We're pretty strict on these numbers because we really want We really want the developmental students to kind of see those credit level students and kind of raise the bar up to where those developmental students can work with the credit students to get that extra support, as well as the extra support from the instructor. Okay. We did have some staffing concerns when it came to co-teaching. Navarro College has adopted a policy in which there has to be 2 different instructors in the classroom. So the credit level instructor will teach one, and then we will have a different instructor from a developmental perspective. That's kind of made it challenging, to say the least.
Scheduling has been difficult because we don't have as many adjuncts as we used to, and so it's can sometimes be very hard to schedule 2 different instructors when you're looking at what classes they're teaching and things of that nature. So we do have to be a little bit conscientious of how we're assigning instructors classes. So.
Absolutely. Well, and in addition to that, just the communication has been a challenge because you have one developmental instructor connecting to multiple credit level instructors.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we all know that every instructor teaches differently. We have done well at Navarro College by kind of working together to create a generalized scheduling plan. But there's an old saying that says no plan survives first contact with the enemy. And that's kind of the idea here is once you develop that plan, if an instructor is out for any particular time, that throws off your schedule and things like that. So I think we're going to get into lessons learned later, but communication is really key in this. Now, students in our setup, if a student is dropped from one course, they are dropped from both courses. Students really need to know that, but that's how we do ours, because with the way the state mandates that we do these courses, a student is not TSI, that's our placement test, are not TSI complete, and therefore if they stop coming to developmental, they cannot stay in the credit. Likewise, if they go to the developmental and they're dropped from the credit, we are, from a developmental perspective, just in time remediation for the credit. So they can't stay in the developmental because it is very, very focused on that course and that course in particular. So we use the Hawks Integrated Review. I've kind of talked about this a little bit before. We do the Hawks Integrated Review for just about all of our courses. We use the intermediate algebra software for the business math, but we have found that the Integrated Review has been very, very beneficial to our setup, because the way that the integrated review works is it will automatically create some sections in there that are linked directly to the credit level material. We also pull our SLOs using the Hawks Web Test Objective Report. This has been a lifesaver from a department chair perspective. We went from having in the neighborhood of 12% of faculty turn in their student learning outcomes at the end of every semester to about a 97–98% SLO generation. So basically what we're able to do is we create these lab quizzes, or we create these quizzes that are put out there that all developmental instructors assign. When they assign it, the students take the test. At the end of the semester, I as department chair run a report based on those 5 or 7 assignments. Immediately, I've got my student learning outcomes, which I can then submit to our Office of Institutional Advancement. It has made our life so much easier. And if any of you have questions on how we run that report, trust me, that's a full session in itself. Not because it's difficult, but just because there's a lot of features in there. Feel free to reach out. We'll show you how we do it.
So some important concepts for teaching co-requisite courses, and I'm sure if you're in the process or journey of the co-requisite, you've probably learned a lot of these things already. This is not introductory, intermediate, or introductory or intermediate algebra is just in time remediation. And I'm going to be honest with you, it took me a little bit of time to kind of wrap my brain around that, because I'm like, well, how am I supposed to teach them the quadratic formula? We teach that at the end of the semester in intermediate algebra, but they need it like day 2 in college algebra in order to do some of the things that they're asked to do in that class. And so I kind of had to understand in myself that this is not intermediate algebra. This is not introductory algebra. I began looking at what problems they were going over in each section and what skills from the developmental class would they need in order to complete that problem. And that's kind of how I went through determining what topics I would want to cover as I was going through each of the sections prior to them going to the credit level course. Another big thing, communication. Brandon said it. We talk to each other on a daily basis. We are all in the same hallway. I'm constantly, if I'm teaching with Brandon or I'm teaching with one of our other instructors, going down. So what did they not understand today? What did they get? What do I need to go over again tomorrow? Is there something that you didn't feel you covered well enough that I could talk to them about it in my section? And so we get that conversation going on, so I can kind of get a pulse on what they're doing in their class to see what I need to add into my class. And like Brandon said, we need to be a little bit flexible, because as you guys know, Texas shut down for a week. Really threw us for a loop. And so, yeah, our schedules have to be able to change, and we have to be able to meet as a developmental instructor and as a developmental class. We have to be able to meet those needs of that credit level class. So we definitely had to kind of work around how are we going to meet the needs of those students at that moment. And then the biggest thing that we have to, again, battle against is the idea that the developmental course doesn't count for anything and it doesn't mean anything. And so we sometimes can get some bad attendance policy, attendance to the class. So we really have to make sure we communicate to the students that the course is mandatory and it does actually affect their financial aid and some other aspects of their college, even if it's not affecting their transfer GPA. So just a couple little things we've talked about throughout the years that we've been doing the co-recs. Now I want to get to the fun stuff. So we are going to talk about some of the activities that we actually do within the class itself. And the first one I have here is a transformation activity. So if you guys teach transformation, which I believe is 4.4 in the College Algebra Concise Approach, which is what we use, Desmos has a really awesome activity platform. You can create activities on your own. You can search activities that Desmos and other teachers have created. I created this one. It's just a matching thing where they have to match I have actually 2 different matching ones. One of them, they have to match the graph with its function, with its domain and range. So that's just a basic matching the f of x equals x squared with the parabola and then with its domain and range. So they're memorizing those common or basic functions. And then the other one is where I have them match a transform graph with its transformations and with its, actually I think there's 4 graphs, their function, the transformations, the function, and the graph itself are all matched together. And it's a really neat activity that they can do online. So you can either do this in a lab or you can assign it as homework. You would just give your students the code to get in. One of the things that you need to understand and the students need to understand is there's no submitting this. They go in, they put their code in, it brings them to the page where it tells them what to do, or they type their name in, brings them to the page. And once they're finished, they can just close it out. You'll have access and see exactly where it was when they stopped the activity, and you can go through and grade and see what they did. I wanted to kind of show you what it looks like from the student perspective. So let me come out here. I've actually already got it open. So you give them that code that was on the PowerPoint. By the way, this is your guys' code. So if you want to play with this will be open until April 2nd. So you can have a chance to kind of play what it would look like as a student. You would just go to student.desmos.com and then you would put in this Z5DH78 and you'd say join. And again, it's going to give your name. Obviously, I'm on my own computer, so it already knows who I am, and I can just say go. I do inform my students to please give me their full name and not to do any nicknames, so because I am going to grade it.
Yes, absolutely. I typically do it just as I don't grade it. I just try to get them out there. I know students don't do optional. But I try to get it out there to get them to do something in kind of a stress-free environment. Go play with it. This is kind of a game. Go enjoy yourself. And hopefully we get it to where because it takes the pressure off. We're trying to fight monotony. We're trying to fight stress. We're trying to kind of make this, we're trying to engage, right? So it's completely up to you how you do it. I usually, we've in the past told students to go in there and put just kind of a fun nickname in, right? And it's kind of fun to see what kind of nicknames that they pick.
So all they have to do to connect two cards is they just have to click on one until it highlights, and it'll automatically connect them for them. And then they can do another one. And you can actually, as an instructor creating this, you can create as many cards as you want to go together. Like you could have also added a domain and range to this if you wanted to have them talking about the domain and range as well.
What is the parent function?
Yeah, you could have done what's the parent function instead of, so there's a lot of stuff you could have done, and all they have to do, and I am obviously not doing this right because I am just randomly choosing cards to go into these things, is they just have to click their cards that they think go together and create those groupings of cards of 3. And once they're done, they just close it out and they're done with that particular activity. And then I wanted to show you, this is the teacher side. So this is teacher.desmos.com. And like I said, they have a ton of activities already built for you. So you can go in and search anything that you want. And you can see they have some featured collections, like here's a linear function collection. If you go in, and it's got describing lines, writing equations, and it's got activities already built out. You can see all of these were actually built by Desmos, but there are, if you go and just search linear equations, let's say, you can see that you have some, like this one was built by Megan Zimmerman. So you do have some that are built by other teachers in Desmos that you can have access to.
And some of them you can alter the ones that have already been created. Mm-hmm. So if it's like what you want, you really you're enjoying it, but there's just a little tweak you want to make, some of them you can do that as well.
Yes, you can definitely. There's a lot of really cool things. I would highly suggest that you come out to the teacher.desmos.com and kind of play around and explore what you can do within this product. And it is free for you. It's free for your student. So there's no cost associated to it. So that's one of the really great benefits. I think everything we've chosen to show you today, for the most part, is actually free for you to use, especially the technology side on this. So I'm going to go back to our PowerPoint here. So again, I would just really stress going out there and playing with that teacher.desmos.com. Lots of really cool activities. I've even talked to our English instructor about doing it with the vocabulary, because those cards that you saw, you can write anything on them you want.
Subject, verb, agreement,
yeah, they could do, yeah,
anything.
So I've kind of showed it to him and thought, well, this would be really cool for them. So it is kind of geared towards mathematics because it is Desmos, but you can do a lot of really cool things with it.
Okay, so it's my turn. One of the activities that we use, this does cost a little bit. Go to Amazon. I believe when we bought these, it was like $20 for 5 packs of 4 or something like that. But we get these, I'm trying to get close. They're dry erase dice, okay? And what you're going to do with these dry erase dice is, we do use this for function composition, but you can use it for linear equations in general. You can do like one side of the equal sign is this, one side of the equal sign is this, and work it. But for a college algebra standpoint, we get these dry erase blocks, and we just put various functions, f of x, g of x, and we get the students to roll those dice. And when they come up, they're going to be given 2 random functions. So in this case, they would have rolled the 2 functions that you see on your screen, probably backward. But they'll get those 2 functions. Now, what they can do from there, they're going to roll a 6-sided dice. Now, we use these big fluffy blue ones, but you can use any dice you want. Again, we're just trying to make it fun.
The kids think these are funny, so that's why we use them. I actually got these from another instructor, so I have no idea how much these would cost to purchase, but you can obviously just use a regular dice as well.
Right. I think Oriental Trading Company has those things. I actually got my set of dice at a conference I went to. But use a wet erase marker with these blocks, because a dry erase marker will rub off as the students roll them or touch them with their hands, and prep them the day before, because you can see that I've got some fingerprints on mine where I wrote them in real quickly, and then as I picked them up to work with them, I kind of erased a little bit. But even if they erase a little bit, they'll be functional. Then what you're going to do, you're going to roll these, and then when they roll their, so let's say they pick up their dice and they roll a 1, you can see on my PowerPoint here that would be to add those two functions together. And then they can work these out. And again, is this what they can do on their homework? Absolutely. Could you give them a worksheet? Absolutely. You could say, hey, here's a worksheet with 20 questions, get to work, come check with me if you have questions. But that's not fun. Well, I guess for us it could be fun, right? Because we're math teachers. But for the great majority of our students, someone told me one time, look, we are in the minority. We love math. We love going to school. We love listening to people talk sometimes. But in general, we are very different from our students. Our students want to come to class. They want to get what they need. They want to better themselves. They want to better their careers. They may or may not be here for the love of learning. So anything that we can do, just rolling dice breaks up that monotony, gets the students involved, and increases engagement.
So the next one is actually one of my absolute favorite activities. I do this in both my statistics co-rec and my contemporary math co-rec when we start talking about statistics. Part of the reason I love this is because the kids absolutely go crazy over it. In fact, I was co-teaching with Brandon one time. I was the developmental for the statistics and he was the credit level for the statistics. And we were in the developmental class and we were rolling the dice and we were laughing and cutting up. It was really funny. And he was like, I don't understand why you get to do the fun stuff. So again, it requires just one set of dice. So again, this is a gift from a teacher friend of mine. And I have these gigantic foam dice. Again, you can use regular dice, but the kids really get a kick out of the gigantic foam dice. You could also do like the blow up dice, anything like that. They just find it hilariously funny.
And they will fight over who gets to roll these dice.
Yes, they will. They will do that too. So what you do, it's 6 rounds. So you start a round by rolling both dice at the same time. So I'm going to roll real quick. And everybody starts with a score of 8. So you add the 2 dice together. So they would start with a score of 8. And at this point, you would have to decide, were you happy with that score of 8, or would you like me to roll 1 additional die? And this is 1 at a time.
Now, keep in mind, everyone in the classroom at this point has 8. So if everyone sits down and says, I don't want to go any further, everyone's tied, right? Yes. So there's an incentive for you to be a little greedy. Yes. Because you want to win.
So I explained to them, if I roll a 1, 3, 5, or 6, they get to add that score or that number to the 8 that they have currently. But if we roll a 2 or a 4, whoever is still standing, whoever is the greedy one, gets 0. The score goes to 0. We start the next round. So at that point, you have to give them a little bit of time to decide, do they want to keep their 8 points or do they want to be a little bit greedy and go for more?
And there's a good probability lesson in here, right? Because you got a 2 out of 6 chance, or a 1/3, 33.33% chance that you're going to be sitting down, right? So,
yeah.
So you can have little fun conversations in the background about that as well, right?
Yeah. And so you roll the dice again. And I got a 1 this time. So everybody who decided to stay standing and go for a little bit more now has 9. And we can do the same conversation again. And you roll the 1 dice until everybody is sitting down and everybody has, or you get to a 2 or a 4. So you roll until everybody sits, or you roll until you roll a 2 or a 4. And that's the end of 1 round. And you do that 6 times. And then what you can do after you've got these 6 numbers, there's a lot of really cool things. So I have them let me go to this. Yeah. I have them do mean, median, mode, and range of their data, so of their 6 scores, as well as find the variance and standard deviation a little bit later. Because usually I do this when we're doing mean, median, mode, and range, the day that they're learning that. And then the next day they learn standard deviation and variance. And so I have them bring that back and we do that the next day. And the other thing I do is I have them total up their score. So we can see who has the highest and lowest score in the class. And then I make everybody tell we write down everybody's score in the class, and we find the mean, median, mode, and range of all of the scores for all 6 rounds and the kids in the class. So it's, again, all you're doing really is getting a data set for the kids to perform these operations on in the statistics class, but they're having so much fun that they forget that it's work.
It's work.
Yeah.
Now, lesson learned. You want to give them something for the winter, because one of my students, very savvy, realized that, ooh, if I stand up and I never sit down, I'm going to get 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, which means the mean is 0, the variance is 0, all of this is 0, right? So you will have some that are like that. But if you offer an incentive to the winner of the game, you really will get some fun.
The other thing I do when I have a student who is savvy like that is I make them take the scores of somebody else and do all of them.
Absolutely, yeah.
So that's another thing I'll do is I'm like, oh, no, Brandon, you're not going to use your scores because you've got 0 on all of those. You're going to use Sue's score over there. And so they're like, oh, man. So yeah, you can kind of counteract that as well, just kind of playing with them. But it's, I really, the kids really love this one. So if you're looking for something to do for mean, median, mode, and range, this is a really fun one to do. It doesn't take as long as it sounds like it takes, and the kids really do get a kick out of it.
Okay, this one I really enjoy. This one is going to mimic what?
No, you're going.
Wait. Which one is this?
This is the.
Oh, this is. Sorry, misread.
So another thing we do in the statistics and contemporary is when we're talking about probabilities, and especially when we're talking about theoretical versus experimental probabilities, I like to do probability stations. So I'll do 4 different stations in the classroom where they'll rotate between them, or sometimes now I give them 4 different stations by themselves, or sometimes with a partner, depending on how many kids I have. And they just go through doing whatever operation it says, spinning a dice, or rolling a dice, spinning a spinner. I have a ton of spinners and things of that nature. You can buy them pretty cheap at the Dollar Tree if you don't have any spinners, and you just, rolling a dice, flipping a coin, how do those things interact with each other? Are they mutually exclusive? So you get to have a lot of those conversations as they're going through the activity of doing these things, and we have them do them 50 times, and then we have them figure out the probabilities based on their experiment, and then we have them figure out the probabilities based on theoretical, and then we say, well, how did they differ? What would happen if you had done 100 experiments instead of just 50 experiments? So we kind of get them thinking about the fact that as we do more experiments, we get closer and closer to what the theoretical probabilities would be. So it's a nice little way, and you can just pretty much make up any, like, look around your office and see what kind of things you can do. We put like starbursts that have the colors into a cup with a sock around it, so they could pull out a random starburst and write the color down. I mean, so it doesn't have to be something really expensive that you have to purchase to make these experiments. You just have to do kind of experiments on what's going to happen. And this particular one, we tend to do the mutually exclusive. And then if you wanted to come back another day and do things that were not mutually exclusive, if you wanted to do something with cards or something like that, you could come back and do that as well. I tend to keep this particular one away from the cards because I want them to be pretty small numbers to work with for that first kind of time, working with 2 different things happening at the same time.
Right.
So, okay, now you can talk about dice.
Sorry. All right. I jumped PowerPoint screens. So this is another one that we use in stats and contemporary mathematics. I love this one. This one's a lot of fun. There is something out there, and feel free to open up your screen and Google it, called a Galton board, if you don't know what it is. Galton boards are a lot of fun. Basically, It's like the old Plinko, right? You've got a bunch of these little ball bearings or BBs, and then when you flip it over, they all fall, and as they hit the little pegs in there, they create a normal distribution. We know that in our classrooms that for a student to really get a good normal distribution, they are going to be rolling dice all the time. You need a very large sample size, and they're going to get bored. So what we do here is we allow a student, this is to compare theoretical versus empirical probability. The students get to roll the dice. Anytime they get to roll the dice, they're going to have a good time. They roll 2 sets of dice, and then they are going to color in the number from 2 to 12 on what that dice is. And they are going to do this as a team until they reach some designated amount. We usually do 20. 40 is a lot of rolling. Okay.
Yeah, usually by 20, they'll have rolled around 200 rolls. Yeah, if they get one, and when we say around 20, what we mean is that, like, basically
number
you guys,
7 20 times.
Yeah, you guys know it's going to be 6, 7, or 8 that's going to get up to that number 20 first. And that's what they're looking for.
But when they do this, they're not going to have a perfectly normal distribution. It'll resemble normal. It will get pretty close, but just because of probability, it could be that they are off of normal. Well, at that point, what they do is they bring their results up to us, and we have an Excel sheet up there that's generated. And when we type in the student's data set, it's going to initially just put that student's data set in there. Then the next group will come up and they will give us, and then we'll type in their data set. And the students get to watch as every time a group comes up, they'll see me typing in that data set, and they'll get to watch this data set form normal because the sample size gets larger and larger and larger and larger and larger. So one of my favorite phrases is many hands make light work, right? And so that's what you've got. You've got the entire classroom doing this great activity, and they are generating that large data set. Well, there's so much you can talk about whenever you're doing this that teaches them with hands-on learning. And then once they're done, what they can do is they can go in and they answer questions. Well, why do you think your data set doesn't really resemble the data set, or resembles but is not the same as the data set for the entire class? And they can answer those kind of understanding in-depth questions. We're not trying to remove the homework that they get through the platform, but what it does is it really lets us delve in deeper and get more learning and more deep understanding of the topic. And that's one of the things that this does.
So this is just, I actually stole this from one of our college algebra instructors. She does this for college algebra, where they actually put a question on the front side and then they flip it over and actually complete the answer. So you can do this for college algebra as well. This is for statistics, and it's all of the formulas that they have to do in statistics. And for most of the questions, what we have is they write the name of the formula, and I have them write the section because it's beneficial to them to know which section that particular formula is out of. So if they want to go back and practice, or they want to go back and read some more about it, they have that section just sitting right there for them. So we put the formula on the front, as well as if we want to identify what any of the variables mean. And then on the back side, we do a very, very quick example of what that looks like. And then we just tape them on there, and they can flip through those. And by the way, we're taping this on a file folder. So it's just a file folder that the kids tape the cards. So it's really a pretty cheap thing if you're going to purchase it for the students. We actually had these particular file folders.
Okay, probably.
Yeah. And then I think I went to Office Depot one day. They were having a really big sale and got, I can't even count how many little note cards I got. And so I would just take my note cards and I would tell the students, okay, guys, you guys need 3 note cards today. Come up and get them before you sit down. And so they would go get their 3 note cards. And then as we were going through the class, we were filling them out. And I was creating one myself because I was using our Elmo so they could see exactly what I was putting on the cards, and they were copying me. And then they were able to flip through them. It's a neat little activity. Doesn't take a whole lot of time. You're reviewing even though they don't realize you're reviewing. And then they have a very handy little guide for them as they're going through their homework, in addition to reviewing the topics as you go. So it's a really neat activity.
All right, this one was fun to do. So this can go for any topic whatsoever. Again, we could assign them a worksheet and say, work these 20 questions, let me know when you're done, come ask me if you've got any questions. We can revolve around the room and kind of check them as we go. But this is a very, just a way to kind of break that monotony, to let them know that they're working without really working. Let them know that they are working without it feeling like they're working. So we have created here a solving equations and a metrics conversion. I think we've built another one for logarithms. And if you want the metric conversion or the blank one, by all means, let us know. We can give you the template. No big deal. You can go in there and fill it in. We can't give the solving equations maze because we actually purchased that one. And we can't share that just because of ethics. But if you want the other ones, more than welcome. Some general suggestions with this one is, as you are kind of working through this maze, definitely do the correct line first. We made the mistake of just working left to right, filling in the top line, then the second line, then the third line, then the fourth line. And yeah, we ended up getting lost and then having to go back and recreate it, or not recreate it. But
so yeah, as you're going through, definitely decide how you want them to go through the maze itself. Like if you want them answering 10 questions, then make sure that you know exactly how they're going to go through the maze and fill in all the right answers. And then you can go back and fill in the wrong answer spokes, as well as fill in the questions for the other boxes that they technically would never get to. Now, I still have the correct answers even on the boxes that they will never get to, because I've had students who've looked at me and said, we really want to do the whole thing. So just kind of keep that in mind as you're going through.
I apologize for the interruption. I just wanted to give a quick warning that we have 10 minutes. I just wanted to leave enough time for questions.
Okay.
Absolutely. Real quick.
So, sorry, I got a Venn diagram. My kids don't understand Venn diagrams. So these are just some circle things. Actually, our teachers, our teacher classes, math for teachers, actually had a whole bunch of these. And so I kind of requisitioned them. But you can also use hula hoops, obviously would work, or you could just have them use a paper Venn diagram. But we use candy. I actually physically use candy. The biggest problem you have is that they'll eat the candy. So kind of think that, just tell them, eat it afterwards. Or if that doesn't work for you and you want to be a little maybe less expensive, you can do it with note cards. One of the benefits to the note cards is you get to write on the back what is exactly in the candy. And I didn't think about this the very first time I did it, because I had people who were like, what's in a Heath bar? And I was like, really?
Never eaten one of those.
So there was a couple of them where I actually gave them extra ones so they could open it and somebody could eat it and determine what was inside of it. So that was kind of a learning experience, and it was fun for them. But the cool thing is they get to create their Venn diagrams, and I like to make them do 2 different ones. So I do one of them that's just two Venn diagrams. And then I'll ask them questions about what was the intersection, what was the union, was there anything, what was in the universe but not in a set. We do all the kind of things that you would normally do with set operations. And then I have them add a third circle, and then we talk about what happened, how did it change the picture when I added a third set into my Venn diagram. So kind of, again, really a cool way for them to experience Venn diagrams with hands-on. It's a lot more fun with actual candy than note cards, I will say that.
But it's more expensive too.
But it is more expensive, because getting all of those types of candies is
those are the good candies, and they're expensive.
Yeah, it's a little expensive. Now what you could do, if you didn't want to you wanted to give them candy because kids like candy, and you could just buy some candy and have it out so they could eat the candy as they're playing the game. Or it's not really a game, but as they're sorting the Venn diagrams.
I think it's a game.
Yeah.
We're going to go pretty quickly through this. In fact, let's just these are the softwares that we use in the classroom. There is one that we kind of want to zoom in on and talk about, and that is Flipgrid. Flipgrid has a great thing now that we've gotten permission to use this in class. One of our co-teachers teaches it. So what it is there's a QR code built in Flipgrid, and we tape all of these questions like this. We'll tape them around the room, and each answer will then lead to another question somewhere else in the room. But that QR code is really neat because the students will be walking around with their phone. They'll look at this problem, and let's say they have no idea, zero clue how to work that. Works really good for a review. What they can do is they can take their phone, they can take a picture of that QR code. It immediately kind of puts a video in VR over the top of the room that they're looking at, and then they can see the instructor work a similar question to that. We've had a lot of really good success with that. Really innovative. Props to Paul. I don't know if he's on this video or not, Paul Pattison, but props to him. He came up with that, and it really does work well for the students.
And if you've never done a maze thing with that, it's a really cool. In addition to just the Flipgrid thing, the maze is a really neat one where you put questions, you put a question on the top of you put an answer on the top and a question on the bottom of a piece of paper, and they answer the question on the bottom, and it takes them to another question around the room, and then they answer that question, and it takes them to another question around the room. So it's a really neat review type of problem. If you guys have any questions about how that works, we have a couple of them for some of the chapters that we have. Okay.
So guys, we wanted to talk a little bit about co-requisites online. I don't think we're going to have a lot of time with that. Suffice to say, with co-requisite online, it's kind of a game changer, but a lot of those online softwares that we use are good for that. Kahoots now allow for kind of a homework where people can complete from home. We do a lot of starting with a lot of the developmental course in the first 4 weeks, and then we transition into the credit. I wish we had a lot of time to talk about all this. So our apologies that we don't get to hit it very, very deeply.
Yeah, and so our classroom classes are commingled, but we did try a commingled co-requisite class, and it failed miserably. So we went back to our administration and said, can we please do these cohorted? So we do have cohorted online classes. So all of your developmental students are there together, which also is the benefit of being able to do the first 4 weeks of the class as developmental material, and then doing the last 12 as a combination of the two. We also build the course in one learning management shell. We use Canvas, so we build everything into one shell of Canvas, so they're not hopping back and forth between 2 different Canvas pages, because that was one of the things they were getting confused about. We do a split grade. We also only use the integrated review portion of the software, since it contains the entire book. So we have the students just using that one software, and we split the grade. You can do that in Hawks under the grading options if you need to know how to do that. I'm sure one of the Hawks split people will help you with that, or you can contact us. We can show you how that happens as well. And then we have lesson videos for every single section that we teach. And we also do an SI session. We've started that this semester. Each instructor takes one night a week, and we just flip-flop with the schedule of who's teaching what, and then we record those and post those as well. And we thought for a while that nobody was paying any attention, until one day we had the video, we just forgot to post it by like noon on Friday, because we do mine on Thursday night. And I had a student emailing me going, when are you going to post the SI session from last night? I really, really need to watch the video. And I was like, oh, okay, sorry. So they actually do watch them. So, and I do have a few, 2 to 3 show up every night. I really wish we had more showing up actually live, but we do have a few show up for the actual live sessions as well. And there is our contact information if you need to contact us or talk to us about any of the concepts that we talked about very, very quickly through. We'd be more than willing to sit down and look at anything with you.
We have a couple of questions that came in. The first one, what do you do for soft skills and projects in the co-rec? How have you transitioned this to remote format for the class?
So from a remote standpoint, we tend to use like those softwares that we had talked about earlier.
I'm not sharing the screen anymore.
Oh, we're not sharing screen anymore. We use a lot of the Kahoots. We use the Socrative. the Desmo stuff, all of that can be done remotely. All of that can be done with the students remotely. We do not, we let the students, whenever they run it, work at their own pace, at their own time. We have a lot of students that work in various industries. So some students nighttime's okay, some students daytime's okay. So we let them work individually. And Kahoot and Desmos, all of that can be done whenever they are available to do that.
And I have to tell you too, we currently do not have hybrid courses anymore. We went back full time as of the spring. As of this spring, we just went back at 75%. So all of our face-to-face classes are in a classroom 2 days a week for the hour and 15 or hour and 20 minutes that they're supposed to be. So for us right now, as far as face-to-face, that's no longer an issue. Just the social distancing stuff is what we're having to deal with as far as how do you do some of these activities and still maintain that social distance with them.
And I think one of the other questions you've already answered, do you let students use Desmos by themselves? They can do that whenever they have time, correct?
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah, you just assign, like I told you guys, that code that I gave you guys, it's open for 2 weeks. So you guys can go in there in any time in the next 2 weeks and play with it as a student. And it will shut down after that. And you can actually, if you're creating it on your end, you can actually decide how much time they get to do that particular activity. And then you can even reactivate it once it's expired. And it'll say, oh, it's going to be active for another 2 weeks. So it really is cool. It's a neat process to play around with the Desmos. And you can probably do the Venn diagram stuff could be done inside the Desmos as well. That would be a neat thing to do.
We do have another question for the developmental math part. Are you lecturing at all, or is it simply on Hawk's self-paced learning system?
Oh no, we lecture all of our developmentals right now. So yes, they are all lecture-based formatted. Like I said, we're playing around with the idea for our bubble students to do a lab-based program where they would do self-paced in the lab with an instructor, but we're still playing around with the idea of how that would look and who would be allowed to take that class.
And the TSI test that we've got here in Texas is actually altering. So that bubble student score will change when they do put the new test out. So we're still trying to work on what numbers and what skill sets are required in order to be able to do just lab-based work versus actual lecture style. But we do. So we intermingle it. Like, not every section in college algebra is going to require predetermined learning, just-in-time remediation. Some of the sections, the skills that they would need to complete that section have already been taught. So what we do in those instances, we work problems, we let the students work things themselves with kind of guided instruction from our standpoint. We look at them, I see you're making this little mistake. Things that might not be able to be done in the credit course just from a time constraint.
Do you have one last question? Do you require students to have a calculator? And if yes, what is the highest level of the calculator? Side note to this question, if you didn't know, the TI-84 Plus CE does have a Prob Sim app that does coins, dice, marbles, spinners, draw cards, and random numbers. And you can have it put the data in the table.
That's really cool. However, no, we do not require our students to have any version of a calculator as far as requirement.
We highly encourage.
We do encourage them to have a calculator, but most of our students don't have TIs. We have our one of our trio system, which is one of our support services, has calculators our students can check out, but it's just they're not the fancy ones. So for the most part, a lot of our students don't have the fancier calculators, but that is really cool.
Our only ruling from a Navarro College policy standpoint or math department standpoint is against the TI Inspire. We don't allow that, but we allow anything else.
And one last question as we are running out of time. How many classes does the remediator have versus the core class teacher?
So we max out with overload at 8. Our traditional standard load is 5 courses. and so the
Whatever.
connection there would be an equal connection. Just depends on did the course make or not. But traditional load is 5, maximum load is 8, and there would be an equal number.
All right, so it looks like we are out of time.
Let me double check. Did you mean classes or students per class? Oh, we've lost audio.
It's classes. How many classes does the remediator have?
Okay, yeah. So standard load of 5.
Okay. All right, so it looks like we are out of time. Thank you, Amy and Brandon, for all the valuable information you shared with us today. I'm going to launch a quick 3-question poll on the presentation you just watched. Please take a moment to share your feedback. Additionally, you can join Nelson Lauber, our next keynote speaker, at 1 p.m. Eastern. You can view the chat for a link to the session. While accessing the conference website, don't forget to swing by the exhibit hall to speak with the Hawks representative one-on-one.